Commander Raxon stared at the holographic display, his 4 eyes blinking in rapid succession. The signal pulsed again, defying every prediction his science team had made. As the Supreme Commander of the Cartharian Empire's 7th Exploratory Fleet, he'd seen his share of anomalies, but this was different. "Run it again," he ordered, his scaled fingers drumming against the command chair's crystalline surface. The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances, their bioluminescent patches flickering with anxiety. The signal repeated, strong, clear, and unmistakably artificial, coming from a planet that, by all rights, should have been dead. A Category 12 death world, with crushing gravity, lethal atmospheric pressure, and enough solar radiation to cook most species alive. "Commander," Lieutenant Zena called out, her voice trembling slightly. "The signal, it's not just random emissions, they're broadcasting entertainment. Music, stories, advertisements for something called car insurance." She paused, confusion evident in her tone. "They're calling their planet Earth." Raxon suppressed a laugh. Entertainment? On a Category 12? Impossible. His people, the mighty Cartharians, were among the galaxy's premier Deathworlders. Their homeworld, with its dense atmosphere and 1.3 standard gravity, had forged them into one of the most physically imposing species in known space. Even they wouldn't survive on a Category 12 for more than a few minutes. "Bring up the planetary data again," he commanded, rising from his chair to pace the bridge. His heavy footsteps echoed against the metallic floor, each step a reminder of his species' power. "Show me everything." The holographic display shifted, presenting a blue-green marble suspended in the void. Statistics scrolled past. Gravity 1.0 g, impossible. Oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere, lethal to most species. Temperature variations from -50 to +50 degrees Celsius, absolutely ridiculous. And go back to the atmospheric composition. 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, 1% trace gases, Zena read out. "Sir, these readings suggest it's inhabited." "By bacteria, perhaps," Raxon scoffed. "Or simple multicellular organisms at most. Nothing sapient could evolve in such conditions." He gestured at the display with one clawed hand. "Look at the solar radiation levels alone. Any species trying to develop there would be cooked alive before they could develop basic tools." First Officer Karras cleared his throat, his neck frills extending slightly in embarrassment. "Sir, about that, we're picking up artificial satellites, thousands of them, and cities, global communication networks, evidence of primitive space travel." Raxon froze mid-step. The bridge fell silent, save for the constant hum of the ship's engines. In his 20 cycles of service, he'd never encountered anything like this. The Cartharians, along with the other Deathworlder species, the crystalline Vexithor, the massive juggernaut Krawl, and the predatory Nexari, had always assumed they were alone in their capability to survive harsh conditions. "Sir," Zena interrupted his thoughts. "Incoming transmission. They've spotted us." "Impossible," Raxon muttered. But even as he said it, he knew he was wrong. The evidence was right there, mocking every assumption he'd ever held about the galaxy's natural order. "Put it through!" The holographic display flickered, and a face appeared. A bipedal creature, soft-skinned with only 2 eyes and no visible natural defenses. It smiled, showing flat, herbivore-like teeth. "This is Captain Sandra Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. We've been tracking your vessel since you entered our solar system. Welcome to Earth." Raxon's translator must be malfunctioning. This fragile-looking creature couldn't possibly be speaking from the surface of a Category 12 death world. Yet here they were, casual as could be, extending greetings as if they weren't standing in an environment that should be liquefying their organs. "This is Commander Raxon of the Cartharian Empire's 7th Exploratory Fleet," he responded, trying to maintain his composure. "We're not expecting to find sapient life in this system." Captain Chen's smile widened. "Yes, we get that a lot. Would you like to come down for a visit? The weather's lovely this time of year, only 35 degrees Celsius and 80% humidity. Perfect for a garden party." Raxon's secondary heart nearly stopped. They considered that lovely weather? He glanced at his environmental officer, who was already shaking his head in disbelief. The readings were clear. Stepping onto that planet's surface would be suicide for any of his crew. I regret that our environmental requirements make such a visit impossible, Raxon managed to say diplomatically. Perhaps we could arrange a meeting on our vessel? Oh, of course. Captain Chen nodded understandingly. We'll send up a delegation. Just one question. What's your standard atmospheric pressure? We'll need to know what suits to bring. 2.3 atmospheres, Raxon replied automatically, then added with concern. Your species can survive pressure changes of that magnitude? Oh, that's nothing, Chen waved dismissively. We've got deep-sea researchers who work at pressures 50 times that. We'll be up in an hour. Chen out. As the transmission ended, Raxon slowly sank back into his command chair. 50 times standard pressure? Deep-sea research? He looked around at his stunned bridge crew, their expressions matching his own disbelief. Send word to the Deathworlder Council, he ordered quietly. Tell them we need to reevaluate our definition of Deathworld, and someone get me a drink, a strong one. As his crew rushed to comply, Raxon continued staring at the image of Earth rotating serenely in space. The Cartharians had always prided themselves on being among the galaxy's toughest species. Now, for the first time in his life, he felt like a soft-worlder. Somewhere on that horrific planet, these humans were preparing to visit his ship, probably thinking about what snacks to bring along. Raxon had a feeling the galaxy was about to become a much more interesting place. The grand chamber of the Deathworlder Council buzzed with nervous energy. High Counselor Vex's crystalline form caught the light as she moved to the center platform, her faceted surface reflecting scattered rainbow patterns across the assembled representatives. The emergency session had been called within hours of Commander Raxon's report, bringing together the 4 most powerful species in known space. The data is conclusive, Vex announced, her voice resonating through the chamber's perfect acoustics. We are not, as we believed, alone in our evolutionary advantages. She gestured, and a holographic Earth appeared above the assembly. Supreme Commander Krull of the Juggernaut Collective snorted, his massive 12-foot frame shifting in his reinforced chair. Impossible, look at them. No armor, no claws, soft skin. They're prey species who got lucky with technology. Lucky? Commander Raxon stepped forward, still shaken from his encounter. They live in conditions that would kill any of us in minutes. Their world experiences temperature swings that would shatter your bones, Krull. They call it weather and complain that it makes their hair frizzy. The Nexari representative, Hunter Prime Tal, leaned forward, her predatory eyes narrowing. Our preliminary analysis suggests they are apex predators, despite their appearance. They persist in hunting even with abundant food supply. They chase prey to exhaustion, continuing long after stronger species would give up. They do what? Krull's 4 eyes blinked in succession. Persistence hunting, Tal explained, bringing up new data streams. Keep going. Their endurance exceeds any known species, and that's just the beginning. Look at their adaptation range. The display shifted, showing humans living in environments from Arctic tundra to scorching deserts. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. This cannot stand, Supreme General Nash of the Vex-Thor Dominion declared, his crystalline form vibrating with concern. If they can survive such extremes, what happens when they expand beyond their world? They could colonize anywhere. They already are, Raxon interrupted, pulling up his ship scans. They have settlements in orbit, a base on their moon and preliminary colonies on Mars, a planet almost as hostile as their homeworld. They call these ventures baby steps. High Counselor Vex raised her appendages for silence as the chamber erupted in worried conversations. The question before us is clear. How do we approach these humans? Traditional power dynamics may not apply here. My crew prepared a standard diplomatic welcome package, Raxon offered. They sent back suggestions for improvements, including 6 different recipes for something called barbecue. They want to host a welcome party on their planet's surface. A trap, Krull declared confidently. No, Tal interjected, her hunting instincts giving weight to her words. They're being genuine. They don't see their world as hostile. To them, we're the strange ones for needing environmental suits just to visit. The display shifted again, showing humans participating in various activities: swimming in liquid water, climbing frozen mountains, running through sandstorms, surviving conditions that would kill any other known species. Look at this, Vex highlighted one recording. They voluntarily jump from high altitudes for entertainment. They call it skydiving. Their young engage in recreational activities they call sports, Tal added, including one where they purposely collide with each other at high speeds. They wear minimal protection and consider this normal. General Nash's crystalline surface flickered with distress patterns. We must send an investigation team. Learn more about these humans before they realize their potential advantage. Too late, Raxon said quietly. During our first contact, they mentioned wanting to exchange scientific data. They're particularly interested in our medical technology. Not for themselves, but because they think it might help them better treat their pets. Their what? Kroll leaned forward, nearly breaking his reinforced chair. Apparently, they share their homes with smaller creatures, for companionship. They spend considerable resources keeping these animals healthy and comfortable, despite no obvious benefit to themselves. The chamber fell silent again as the implications sank in. A species so adaptable they treated survival as an afterthought. So confident they devoted resources to caring for other species purely for emotional reasons. High Counselor Vex's surface rippled with decision patterns. We will send a joint delegation, representatives from all our species. We need to understand these humans better. She paused, her crystals refracting light in complex patterns. And someone needs to verify their claims about this barbecue. For diplomatic reasons, of course. I volunteer, Tal said quickly, her hunting instincts clearly intrigued by the concept of cooked meat. The delegation will depart immediately, Vex declared. Commander Raxon, you'll lead, since you've already established contact, and... She hesitated. Bring environmental suits. Lots of them. We may be Deathworlders, but compared to humans, we're starting to look like tourists on a pleasure planet. As the council dispersed, Raxon checked his latest update from Earth. Captain Chen had sent more messages, including an invitation to something called a tailgate party before the diplomatic meetings began. Apparently, it involved gathering in an open parking lot, deliberately exposing oneself to the elements while consuming food cooked outdoors. They're either the bravest or the most insane species we've ever encountered, Raxon muttered to himself. Why not both? Tal asked, falling into step beside him. After all, only humans would look at a Category 12 death world and think, yes, this looks like a nice place to evolve civilization and have picnics. Raxon couldn't argue with that logic. As he prepared for the mission ahead, he wondered what other surprises these humans had in store for them. One thing was certain, the galaxy's power dynamics were about to change dramatically. From the safety of their reinforced observation pod, the alien delegation watched humanity with growing bewilderment. Commander Raxon kept a detailed log, though each entry seemed more outlandish than the last. Observation log, Day 3. The humans have taken us to what they call a gym. Inside, they voluntarily subject themselves to simulated labor, lifting heavy objects repeatedly for no apparent purpose other than to make the task more challenging in the future. When asked why, our guide Tucker Martinez simply said, "Gotta get those gains, bro." We remain uncertain what these gains are. Hunter Prime Tal peered through the observation window at a human performing something called deadlifts. Her sensory frills twitched with each movement. They're deliberately straining their muscles to the point of micro-tears, she noted. And they do this for recreation? Apparently they grow stronger by repeatedly damaging and healing themselves, Kroll rumbled, watching a human bench press nearly their own body weight. It's like their entire species decided that what doesn't kill them literally makes them stronger. The next observation location proved even more confounding. Raxon activated his recording device again. Observation log, Day 5. We're at a human sporting event called hockey. They deliberately slide across frozen water, crashing into each other while chasing a small disc. When one human lost several teeth from an impact, The crowd cheered as he waved and smiled, bleeding, before returning to the game. The other humans call this playing through the pain and consider it admirable. General Nash's crystalline form vibrated with concern. Their young are present, watching this display of violence. They're taking notes and wearing miniature versions of player uniforms. Speaking of their young, Tal interjected, pulling up her own observations, I've been monitoring their educational facilities. Their children engage in an activity called recess, where they're released into an outdoor arena to run, climb, and engage in mock combat. The supervisors only intervene if someone draws blood or breaks a major bone. Raxon added another entry. The humans call their children's play area a playground. It's essentially a training ground filled with obstacles, climbing structures, and opportunities for dangerous falls. They consider this essential for proper development. The delegation moved to their next observation point, a coastal area. What they witnessed there nearly caused Cruel to crash their pod in shock. Observation log, Day 7. Humans are deliberately swimming in the ocean. Let me repeat that. They are voluntarily immersing themselves in an environment containing countless predators, powerful currents, and salt water that would corrode most species' protective layers. They call this a beach vacation and pay money to do it. Look at that one. Tal pointed at a human on something called a surfboard. They're riding liquid water formations for entertainment. Those waves could crush our strongest vessels, and they're laughing. Their observations of human cities proved equally disturbing. Raxon struggled to maintain scientific objectivity in his logs. Observation log, Day 10. Humans build vertically, creating structures they call skyscrapers that deliberately challenge their planet's gravitational pull. When asked about the risk of collapse, our guide Lisa Chen laughed and said they engineer them to withstand something called earthquakes, when their planet's crust randomly decides to shake everything apart. General Nash focused his sensors on a construction site. Their workers are suspended hundreds of feet in the air, secured by mere straps and ropes. They're eating their midday meal up there, dangling over the abyss, sharing what they call lunch. The final straw came during their observation of a human emergency response team. Raxon's log entry for that day was particularly agitated. Observation log, Day 12, witnessed human firefighters in action. These specialists deliberately run into burning buildings to rescue others. They consider this a normal occupation. When fire threatened to collapse a structure, one human said, and I quote, "Hold my coffee before charging in to save a small animal their species keeps as a pet." Tal reviewed their compiled data, her hunting instincts thoroughly confused. We've been measuring their strength all wrong, she concluded. We focused on their physical capabilities, muscle density, bone structure, cellular resistance. But their true strength, it's their sheer audacity. They don't just survive on their death world, Krull agreed, his massive frame slumped in resignation. They actively seek out ways to make it more challenging. They invented something called extreme sports because regular sports weren't dangerous enough. Raxon made his final log entry of the observation phase. Preliminary conclusion. Humans are Category 12 Deathworlders not because their planet forced them to be, but because they chose to become so. They deliberately expose themselves to harsh conditions, intentionally strain their bodies, and willingly face dangers that would terrify most species. They don't just adapt to challenges, they actively seek them out and invent new ones when they get bored. Should we tell the Council? Nash asked, his crystalline surface showing stress patterns. Tell them what? Tal responded. That we found a species that treats our worst nightmares as their weekend entertainment? That they invented something called caffeine to make themselves even more hyperactive and alert? We have to tell them something, Raxon sighed, watching a human child fearlessly pet a large predatory canine. The Council needs to understand that everything we assumed about survival and adaptation needs to be reconsidered. Perhaps, Krull suggested, we should just tell them that humans are unique. Unique? Raxon laughed. Yesterday I watched a human eat something they called ghost peppers. That would be classified as a chemical weapon on most worlds. They streamed it live for entertainment. Unique doesn't begin to cover it. The delegation prepared to return to their ship, each member lost in thought about the implications of their observations. As they lifted off, They watched a group of humans preparing for something called a marathon, voluntarily running 26.2 miles for fun. "May the cosmic forces help us all," Raxon muttered. "We thought we were the galaxy's ultimate survivors. Turns out we're just tourists on an adventure holiday compared to humans." The diplomatic meeting was scheduled for what humans called high noon, apparently choosing the time of day when their solar radiation exposure was at its peak, because of course they would. Commander Raxon adjusted his environmental suit for the 18th time, watching through the reinforced windows as the human delegation approached the neutral meeting ground. Ambassador Rebecca Patel led the human group, wearing what she called business casual attire, apparently considering environmental protection unnecessary for a formal diplomatic event. Behind her walked Major James Cooper, their military attaché, casually drinking something called hot coffee in the sweltering 35-degree heat. "Welcome to the first official meeting between Earth and the Deathworlder Council," Ambassador Patel announced cheerfully. "I hope you don't mind meeting outdoors. We thought it would be more comfortable for everyone." Kroll's translation device must have malfunctioned. "Comfortable? It's nearly 308 Kelvin out here." "Oh, is it too cool?" Patel asked with genuine concern. "We can move to the sun side of the building if you'd prefer. Or maybe the greenhouse? It's a lovely 40 degrees in there." Tal's hunting frills flattened against her neck in disbelief. "You maintain structures at even higher temperatures. Deliberately?" "Just for the tropical plants," Major Cooper explained, taking another sip of his steaming beverage. "Though the sauna goes up to 80 degrees if anyone's interested. Great for relaxing after a workout." The alien delegation exchanged horrified glances through their protective visors. "Perhaps we should proceed with the formal introductions," Raxon suggested hastily, before anyone could ask what a sauna was. "We have prepared information packets about our respective species." "Oh yes," Patel brightened. "We've prepared some too, along with samples of various Earth cultures. Would anyone like to try some sushi? It's raw fish, or maybe some kimchi. It's spicy fermented vegetables." General Nash's crystalline form vibrated in alarm. "You consume uncooked biological matter and deliberately spoiled plant material?" "Don't worry, we brought mild versions," Cooper assured them, completely misunderstanding the source of their concern. "Though personally, I prefer the extra spicy stuff. Really clears the sinuses." The meeting proceeded with a series of increasingly shocking revelations. The humans casually mentioned their space program started with them literally strapping themselves to explosive devices. They talked about deep-sea exploration, as if crushing pressures were a minor inconvenience. They discussed mountain climbing like it was a pleasant weekend activity rather than a near-death experience. "And here's our proposal for cultural exchange programs," Patel continued brightly. "We thought starting with sports might be fun. Something simple, like baseball or rock climbing. You want to start cultural exchange with activities involving high-speed projectiles and vertical ascension without protective gear?" Raxon asked weakly. "Well, we could do football instead," Cooper offered helpfully, "though the tackling might take some getting used to." Tal, who had been reviewing the human information packet, suddenly made a choking sound. "It says here humans can survive for several minutes without breathing." "Oh yeah, free diving is amazing," Cooper nodded enthusiastically. "The current record is over 24 minutes, though that's with specialized training, of course." The entire alien delegation stared at him in stunned silence. "Perhaps," Raxon suggested carefully, "we should focus on less physical, cultural exchanges first. Art, music?" "Great idea," Patel beamed. "We'll start with something accessible. Have you heard of extreme metal, or maybe parkour performances?" As the meeting continued, it became increasingly clear that humans had no concept of their own extraordinary resilience. They spoke of surviving in space, exploring ocean trenches, and climbing frozen mountains as if these were perfectly reasonable things to do for fun. The final straw came when Patel casually mentioned their plans for Mars colonization. "We're thinking of terraforming it eventually, but for now we'll just set up habitats, though the reduced gravity will take some getting used to." Might need to design new sports to keep colonists fit. Raxon made a mental note to update the Council's classification system. They needed a new category entirely, something beyond Deathworlder, something that captured the essence of a species that looked at the most hostile environments in the galaxy and thought, I wonder if I could do a triathlon there. As the meeting concluded, Ambassador Patel invited them to a casual barbecue. Nothing fancy, she assured them. Just some grilled food, maybe some volleyball, and if anyone's interested, Tom brought his hot sauce collection. We thank you, Raxon said quickly, but we should return to our ship to process this information. Of course, Patel smiled understandingly. Space lag must be tough. We'll send you home with some espresso. Really helps with jet lag, so it should work for space travel too. The alien delegation retreated to their ship, each member trying to process what they'd learned. Humans weren't just surviving on a death world, they were thriving, expanding, and apparently looking for ways to make other planets more like their lethal homeworld. Well, Tal said finally, at least they're friendly. Yes, Raxon agreed, watching through the view screen as the humans began setting up their barbecue anyway, undeterred by their guests' departure. Let's just hope they never realize they're the scariest species in the galaxy. The Grand Chamber bristled with tension as Champion Raykar of the Juggernaut Collective stepped forward. Standing nearly 14 feet tall, his armored exoskeleton gleaming under the chamber lights, he addressed the assembled delegations with barely contained aggression. These humans mock us with their casual superiority, Raykar growled, his massive claws clicking against the chamber floor. They treat our greatest achievements as their children's playtime. I propose a challenge to establish the true hierarchy of strength. Ambassador Patel, looking impossibly small next to the towering alien, merely smiled. Commander Raxon felt his scales tighten with anxiety. He'd learned that human smiles didn't always mean what you thought they did. What kind of challenge did you have in mind? Patel asked pleasantly, sipping from a steaming cup of coffee, her third of the morning. Trial by combat, Raykar declared. Your strongest warrior against me. Traditional Juggernaut rules. No weapons, no armor, pure physical contest. The alien delegation held their breath, expecting the humans to decline such an obviously suicidal proposal. Instead, Patel checked her phone. Sounds fun. When were you thinking? We've got a couple of Marines who just finished their morning PT and are probably looking for something to do. Or did you want to make it more interesting? Raykar's secondary arms twitched in confusion. More interesting? Well, if we're testing physical capabilities, why not make it an actual competition? Maybe a triathlon, or an obstacle course. We could live stream it, make it a proper event. The internet would love it. Commander Raxon fought the urge to bang his head against the nearest wall. Of course, the humans would treat a life or death challenge as an opportunity for entertainment. You dare to mock the sacred combat traditions of the Juggernaut Collective? Raykar's voice boomed through the chamber. Not at all, Patel replied cheerfully. I'm just suggesting we have fun with it. Tell you what, let's make it a 3-part challenge. You pick one event, we pick one, and the third is mutual agreement. That way everyone gets to showcase their strengths. The chamber erupted in murmurs. This was unprecedented. Raykar's combat challenges were legendary across 7 star systems. No one had ever suggested turning one into a sporting event. Very well, Raykar snarled. First challenge, weightlifting competition. Pure strength. Cool, Patel tapped something into her phone. We pick endurance running for the second event. Marathon distance okay with everyone? Raxon watched Raykar's expression shift from confidence to confusion. You expect me to run 26.2 miles? Oh, don't worry, we'll set up water stations. Now for the third event. Any thoughts? Rock climbing could be fun. Or maybe swimming. This is not a game. Raykar slammed his fist into the ground, leaving a sizable dent in the reinforced flooring. Everything's a game if you have the right attitude, Patel grinned. But if you're looking for something more traditional, we could do wrestling. Good old-fashioned grappling, no holds barred. Lieutenant Rodriguez, the human military advisor, finally looked up from her own phone. "Ma'am, Dave from the SEAL team just volunteered. Says he's bored anyway since the weather's too nice for their usual training." "Perfect," Patel clapped her hands. "When do we start, Champion Raykar? Dave's got a charity mountain climb this weekend, but he's free all week otherwise." The massive alien warrior stood frozen, his challenge having spiraled completely out of his control. The humans were treating his sacred combat ritual like a pickup game at the gym. "Tomorrow," he managed to growl. "At first light." "Wonderful," Patel beamed. "We'll bring snacks. Anyone have dietary restrictions? We're thinking of making it a proper event. Maybe set up some bleachers, get a food truck or two." Commander Raxon watched in fascination as the mighty champion Raykar, terror of the Outer Rim, was reduced to confused silence by human enthusiasm. The champion had expected fear, defiance, or desperate negotiation. Instead, he got event planning and catering arrangements. "The sacred challenge cannot be turned into a public spectacle," Raykar protested weakly. "Too late," Rodriguez showed her phone screen. "It's already trending on social media. #Space Throwdown is getting a lot of buzz. The livestream channel has 500,000 subscribers already." As the chamber dissolved into chaos, with various species arguing about broadcast rights and whether betting would be allowed, Commander Raxon approached Ambassador Patel. "You planned this," he accused quietly. "Not exactly," she smiled, "but we figured someone would eventually try to prove their superiority through combat. Humans have been doing that dance for millennia. We just learned to make it more entertaining. And this Dave person, he can actually compete with Champion Raykar? Oh, probably, but more importantly, he's going to have fun doing it. That's what really drives Raykar nuts, you know. Not that we can match him physically, but that we'll enjoy the challenge." As Raxon watched Raykar stomp out of the chamber, already being followed by floating camera drones, he realized humanity had won before the competition even started. They'd taken a deadly serious challenge and transformed it into tomorrow's viral entertainment. "May the cosmic forces have mercy on us all," he muttered. "Don't worry," Patel patted his armored shoulder. "We're ordering extra snacks, though you might want to skip the jalapeno poppers. We're making them competition-level spicy." The competition site buzzed with activity as thousands of spectators gathered. Food trucks lined the perimeter, selling everything from tacos to Thai food. Champion Raykar stood in his designated area, watching in disbelief as humans treated his sacred challenge like a festival. Dave Martinez, the human champion, was doing light stretches while chatting with fans and signing autographs. He looked ridiculously small next to Raykar's massive frame. The weightlifting competition started exactly as everyone expected. Raykar easily pressed weights that would crush most spacecraft. The crowd cheered appreciatively, treating his display of legendary strength like a decent opening act. Then Dave stepped up. While he couldn't match Raykar's raw power, his technique and endurance proved remarkable. He kept lifting well past the point of exhaustion, pushing through barriers that should have been physically impossible. But it was the marathon that changed everything. 3 hours in, Raykar collapsed, his mighty body giving out under the relentless Earth gravity and distance. Dave jogged back to check on him, offered him water, then continued running. He finished the race, turned around, and ran back to make sure his competitor was okay. "Good effort, big guy." Dave patted Raykar's armor. "Want to grab a protein shake before the wrestling?" The wrestling match never happened. Raykar, his pride and understanding of the universe thoroughly shattered, formally withdrew from the challenge. But the true revelation came during his concession speech. "We thought we were the galaxy's ultimate survivors," Raykar announced to the crowd. "We were wrong. Humans don't just survive, they thrive on adversity. They embrace it, transform it into entertainment, make it fun." Commander Raxon watched from the observation deck as humans helped Raykar to the medical tent, chattering excitedly about organizing intergalactic sports leagues and cultural exchange programs. "They're going to change everything, aren't they?" Nash asked quietly. "They already have," Raxon replied. "The galaxy's strongest species aren't those who merely survive deadly conditions. They're the ones who look at those conditions and say, 'Hey, we could make a game out of this.' The event concluded with an impromptu barbecue. Humans and aliens mingled, sharing stories and food. Even Raykar found himself enjoying something called a chili dog, though his environmental suit's sensors strongly advised against it. As the sun set on this new era of galactic relations, Commander Raxon made one final log entry. "We thought we were the Deathworlders. Turns out we were just playing in the shallow end of the pool. Humanity doesn't just survive the impossible, they turn it into a spectator sport. The galaxy will never be the same." And maybe that's exactly what we needed. One standard galactic year after first contact, Commander Raxon sat in his favorite observation lounge aboard the Galactic Council station, watching humans revolutionize everything they touched. His personal log had become less of a formal record and more of a bewildered commentary on humanity's impact on galactic society. Personal log, final entry. The humans have done it again. They've turned the toxic storms of Nexus Prime into what they call extreme surfing opportunities. The Nexari are simultaneously terrified and thrilled. Tourist revenue has increased 300% this quarter alone. He took a sip from his drink, some human concoction called hot chocolate, that his environmental suit had finally approved after extensive modifications, and continued recording. The Juggernaut Collective's sacred combat trials have been transformed into something called the Intergalactic Olympics. Former champion Raykar is now a sports commentator with his own streaming channel. His show Smash or Pass, where he critiques various extreme sports, has become the galaxy's highest-rated entertainment program. Through the lounge window, he watched a human construction team installing what they called a zip line between space station sections. Apparently, regular transportation tubes weren't exciting enough. The Vexithor Dominion has opened their crystal caves for what humans call spelunking tours. General Nash now leads meditation retreats where humans come to experience the resonance of crystal formations. He's written a best-selling book titled Zen and the Art of Crystal Harmonics. A group of human children raced past his observation post, wearing junior environmental suits decorated with cartoon characters. Behind them, their alien classmates struggled to keep up, already exhausted from what humans considered light exercise. The education exchange programs have been interesting. Human children think zero-gravity recess is totally awesome. Their games have become so popular that the Council had to establish special safety protocols for interspecies playground activities. Who knew tag could be so dangerous in 3 dimensions? Raxon adjusted his seat as the station's artificial gravity fluctuated slightly. The humans had suggested dynamic gravity zones to make exercise more challenging, because apparently regular exercise wasn't difficult enough. The humans have also revolutionized our food culture. They introduced something called fusion cuisine to the galactic community. Last week I witnessed a juggernaut chef crying tears of joy over something called ghost pepper ice cream. The medical bay has never been busier. A notification popped up on his screen. Another human expedition requesting clearance to explore the radioactive crystal deserts of Vexithor Prime. For fun, because of course they would. The military implications have been even more dramatic. Human special forces training programs are now considered the galaxy's ultimate challenge. Even the proudest Nexari hunters struggle to complete what humans call basic training. The humans just keep encouraging everyone, calling it character building. He watched as a mixed group of species attempted human yoga in the station's recreation center. The instructor, a serene human named Sarah, was patiently explaining that no, achieving inner peace shouldn't be quite this stressful. Their influence on technology has been profound. Human engineers took one look at our safe, reliable fusion reactors and asked why they couldn't be more efficient. 3 months later, power output was up 200%. When asked how they did it, their chief engineer just shrugged and said, "We tried stuff until it worked better." Through another window, he could see the station's newest addition, a human-designed emergency response training facility. The Deathworlder Council had needed 3 separate meetings just to process the insurance requirements. The humans have even changed how we approach colonization. They call their method terraforming light. Instead of waiting centuries for perfect conditions, they just start building and adapt as they go. Their argument is, and I quote, If we wait for ideal conditions, we'll never get anything done. A maintenance alert caught his attention. Humans had modified the station's waste recycling system again, making it 40% more efficient through what they called creative engineering. The safety board was still trying to understand how they'd done it. Perhaps most surprisingly, they've become the galaxy's foremost diplomats. Their ability to turn any conflict into a sporting event or cultural festival has prevented 3 interstellar wars so far. Last month, they resolved a century-old territorial dispute by organizing a cooking competition. Raxon checked his schedule for tomorrow. He was supposed to attend the opening of the first human-designed adventure resort on a volcanic moon. They'd somehow made an actively erupting volcano into a tourist destination. The humans have a saying, "Hold my beer." We've learned this phrase usually precedes either a brilliant innovation or an interstellar incident, sometimes both. The Council has officially classified it as a Class 3 warning phrase. He watched as a human ship docked at the station, its hull bearing scorch marks from what the crew would probably describe as a slight miscalculation during their latest exploration mission. The galaxy has changed more in 1 year of human integration than it did in the previous century. They don't just survive, they thrive. They don't just adapt, they renovate. They look at the most hostile environments we know and ask, but can we snowboard there? A group of mixed-species children ran past again, now playing something called Space Pirates. Their parents watched nervously as they enacted elaborate pretend battles, complete with sound effects. Looking back, we thought we were the apex of evolution, the ultimate survivors. We were so proud of our ability to endure harsh conditions. Then we met a species that turned harsh conditions into tourist attractions. Raxon finished his hot chocolate, watching as a human repair team performed what they called a routine spacewalk to fix a communications array. Without safety tethers, because apparently they found it more convenient that way. Final thoughts. The humans haven't just changed our technology, our sports, or our culture. They've changed how we view the universe itself. Where we saw barriers, they see challenges. Where we saw dangers, they see opportunities. Where we saw reasons to stop, they see reasons to try harder. He added one last note as he watched a human child explain to her alien friends why jumping into a pile of cushions from the second floor was totally safe if you do it right. The galaxy needed humanity, even if we didn't know it. They've taught us that survival isn't enough. You have to live, to thrive, to enjoy the challenge. They've shown us that being a Deathworlder isn't about enduring harsh conditions. It's about looking at those conditions and saying, I wonder if we could have a party here. End log. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've been invited to something called a bungee jumping demonstration. The humans promise it's perfectly safe. May the cosmic forces have mercy on us all. As Raxon headed toward the activity center, he passed a newly installed human motivational poster. It showed a stunning image of Earth, storms, volcanoes, oceans, and all, with a simple caption that perfectly summed up humanity's impact on the galaxy. The worst that could happen is death. The best that could happen is awesome. Let's find out which. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was probably a good thing.